You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty.
If I start saying yes to everything, those people expect that. A huge kind of flip in my brain was when I realized that I work as a veterinarian. I don't identify as a veterinarian. There's so much more to me.
Hello there, and thank you so much for tuning in for a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. My name is Felicia, and A Bit From Within is my passion project. It is a place where I want to encourage people of all different walks of life, but especially those people who are perfectionistic, big-hearted, struggling maybe a little bit with their self-care, to just keep going and to remember that you're not alone and that we all go through ups and downs and are doing our best to figure out our way through life. And this week, I think we have such an important and fun episode for you. We'll be talking to Dr. Alissa Edoff. She is actually a veterinarian. She graduated with her degree in veterinary medicine and surgery in 2015, and she has traveled all over the world, and she runs her own business here in Colorado. And I am lucky enough, I actually met her through her sister, who's a friend of mine. And then back in 2018, I was able to photograph some very special moments in her life, including her wedding day to her wonderful husband, as well as a lot of the pictures that you see on her website. So for her business, when she started her business. And because she and I both were taking our businesses full time around the same time, we've always had really, I feel like, important conversations about managing life as a business owner and navigating through kind of the ups and downs. And I think that this episode, we talk a lot about work-life balance. And I will say, you don't have to be a business owner to relate to many of the things that we're talking about. I think it really comes down to figuring out what kind of boundaries do you need to have around your time. And I will say that Alissa has a really good perspective on that I think you'll really enjoy. So without further ado, let's get to the heart of the interview. Welcome to the podcast today, Alissa.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
No, I'm so excited to have you on today. We're going to have so much fun kind of just chatting. And I thought we would start with a little bit of a rapid fire Q&A just so we can get to know you a little bit better before we dive into me actually picking your brain more about work and life and passions and travel and all of that. Does that sound good?
That's perfect.
Okay, perfect. So we'll start kind of easy. Where are you from?
I am from Colorado here. I grew up in Arvada.
I'm also from Arvada, so we have that in common.
Yeah, that's how we met. Remember, you and my sister were.
Yeah, actually, so for all of these listeners out here, Alissa and I go way back because I went to school with her sister. And then a couple of years ago, I photographed her wedding. So you'll hear when I ask her about her marriage and how long she's been married, that I was also involved in that moment too. Okay. What is your sun sign? I actually don't know the answer to this question.
Taurus.
Are you a Taurus?
Taurus.
Okay. I love that. And I can totally see that because when I was thinking about you, I was like, I bet she has to be an earth sign. And voila, you are.
Yes.
My next question is, are you married?
Yes.
What is his sun sign?
He is a Scorpio. I don't feel like it fits him though.
Okay.
From what I know about Scorpios, I'm not super.
We should look at his natal chart sometime because sometimes you can have a lot more influence in your rising sign or your moon sign, things like that. So
yes,
Dave is also a Scorpio, but he's definitely a Scorpio.
Yeah.
And how long have you and your husband been married for?
Well, legally or since our wedding.
You can tell that story a little bit if you'd like to.
Yeah. So I'm a veterinarian, and I was lucky enough to have the most supportive husband in the world to let me start my own business. But with that, I lost all of my insurance and benefits. So Mark and I actually got married 3 weeks after we got engaged because my insurance was ending. So we've been legally married for 5 years, but it's been 3.5 since we had our actual wedding.
Did you know that he was going to propose when he did?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. I got to kind of give him ideas about the ring. But what was kind of funny, we went on a trip to Hong Kong, and on the flight, he had his backpack open, and I noticed that he had the ring box with him. So the entire time we're in Hong Kong for like 7 to 10, I think it was 7 days, I was just waiting for him to propose, but he saw me see it. So then he's like, no, she's expecting it. So like I had my nails done. Like I was like ready for this proposal, and it never happened. So he surprised me after work one day, because he was like, this is not expected. And like my nails were done, they'd grown out. I was like, oh man.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And so you guys knew, you were like, you're the one, we're going to do this. Did you have the plan to get legally married so soon after the engagement, or did it just kind of happen really fast?
Gosh, I feel like it kind of happened fast because I think I got accepted or got offered the job that I lost my insurance before I went out on my own completely, around the same time. And so I think we were trying to figure out like how we do it. And then it just made sense to do it that way. Yeah, I'm trying to remember because it was only 3 weeks after we got engaged. So it must have been pretty quick.
Yeah. Do you feel like being legally married took any of the pressure of like the wedding day off of you?
Yes. The whole point of our wedding was the party and the celebration. So we didn't have to have this super long ceremony. And my dad actually kind of like officiated the wedding because we didn't need that legal justice of the peace or whichever we were going to use. So I think that meant a lot to my dad to be able to do that. And it could just be a fun, quick, like, hi, say I do, and off we go to party.
I would say you completely accomplished that. Obviously, I was there. Alissa, do you have any children?
Oh, well, not human ones, but I have quite the zoo of fur ones.
Yes. Tell us all about your fur babies.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, so Harley is our pit bull, and Harley is really special because that's actually how I met Mark. So at my first job as a veterinarian, I'd been there 1 week, and Mark brought Harley in for diarrhea. And that's how we met. And I knew from that very first meeting that he was going to be someone special because he was like, he's my first dog. I've always been a cat guy. I was like, oh my gosh, a cat guy. You don't come across these every day. So yeah, we have Harley the pit bull, who's going to be 8 this year. Freya is a rough coat collie, a lassie dog. She's 5. They were both in our wedding. Then we have 4 cats. Vixen, who has, gosh, she's probably between 17 and 18. I've had her for 16 years. She's traveled the world with me and been with me for my longest relationship by far. And then 3 younger cats. So Salem, Ingrid Bergman, and Loki, who are 3.5, almost 2. And Loki is 9 months old.
Oh my gosh.
And then I lease a horse. And I have 4 fish and soon to be probably a bunch of shrimp. And we became beekeepers. So we have probably like 10,000 bees.
So you really are running a zoo of your own.
Literally a zoo.
I bet you have a lot of fun with that.
Fun and stress. Because I really love plants too. And Ingrid is a plant murderer. So
that's rough.
Oh my gosh. She used to like dig up my succulents and like bring them to me, which was very kind of her, but I would prefer they stay in the ground.
What do you do for work?
Yes, I am a veterinarian. I run my own business and have kind of focused my practice on acupuncture for large and small animals, which I actually also help teach to other veterinarians wanting to learn that skill. And then I am also certified as a canine rehabilitation therapist, which is essentially like a dog physical therapist.
And are you passionate about what you do?
Yes. Yeah. Short answer, yes.
Did you know when you were becoming a vet that that's the direction you wanted to take your career?
Absolutely not. No, I tracked equine, so horses, when I was in vet school. And I went to vet school in Scotland, actually. So in order to become a horse vet, you have to do an internship. For most practices, they require that. And in order to get an internship, you have to do a bunch of externships because it's very competitive. And because I was living in Europe, I wasn't able to get back to the States probably as frequently as I should have to make myself a good candidate. So I did not get an internship. So that kind of fell by the wayside. And it's just been this kind of like snowball evolution to where I am right now, but no.
Yeah. And would you trade it? Like, do you ever regret not taking a different path, or do you just feel so grateful that you found the path you're on?
Gosh, that's such a hard question. Because the debt for being a veterinarian is ridiculous, like more than my mortgage.
Yeah.
So looking back at myself 15 years ago, I would go tell myself, like, do something else. You don't make enough for the debt you're in, and it's this very stressful job. However, I think my 15 years ago self would have been like, no, it's my dream come true. So it's hard because I don't think I would make a different decision if I was to go back. But looking back, I'm like, man, I should have done something else.
Totally.
No, it's hard to know the future. Like you don't know. And
Exactly.
when it's that passionate of a dream, you're like, I don't care how much debt I'll be in. Like I'll figure it out.
Exactly. And so you run your own business.
Yes.
Did you ever think that that's the path that you had, is like being your own business owner?
No, I don't like a stressful life. So I was like, oh, I'll just work for someone and it'll be great. And I'll get my paycheck and I'll do my job and it'll be wonderful.
Yep. Do you feel like life kind of forced you into being your own business owner?
I do. I had a handful of not so wonderful jobs in my first couple jobs as a vet. And so what I learned from those is what I will and won't tolerate. And ultimately, the easiest way to have control is to be your own boss.
It's so true. Sometimes there are some days when running a business gets really hard, and I think, gosh, if I could just go back to the days of Starbucks or working at Apple, or maybe I should do that again. And then I literally think about like having to report to somebody else, and I'm like, no.
Yep. And having someone tell you your schedule.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's a hard no.
Yep. I go through that probably on a weekly basis.
Me too. So, and sometimes, it's funny because sometimes you're like, you wake up and you're like, if only like I could call out of work today and it was somebody else's problem,
Right.
Or
Yes.
just those little things, but there are benefits and really hard parts to it. I'm curious for you, like, obviously you just said like, you never expected to be your own business owner. So what was it like when you first started contemplating like becoming a business owner? What were some of the thoughts that went through your head? And like, what were some of the things that were like, if I'm going to do this, then it has to be like this? Like, talk to us about the very beginning.
Yeah. So I graduated veterinary school in 2015 and I was so excited to be a vet. And I got a job in mixed animal practice because I didn't get my equine internship. So the next best thing was work for a practice that saw horses. And without going too much into that job, I quit after 3 months because within 3 weeks, I woke up like with a heart rate of over 100 in the middle of the night, just in tears, like, what have I done with my life? And I had been interested in acupuncture. So I came back to Colorado, came back home to figure out a job, got a job with corporate practice, which again was never on the docket. But I signed up to become acupuncture certified. And when I went to my acupuncture course, it was ultimately like career changing. There were people there that taught, which now I'm fortunate to also teach, who were running a mobile practice, working for themselves. And it was just like a light bulb. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. So I got certified in acupuncture at the end of 2016. And by, I think, January 4th, 2017, I had my LLC established for what my long-term goal was. I was like, I'm going to do this. So it's just baby steps, honestly, like, okay, here's the first step. Like, we'll figure out how I get there, but I don't want to work for other people. I don't want to be seeing 30 pets in a day in a 10-hour schedule where I just don't feel like I can give them the care that they need. Or it's very hard as a general practice vet because you have to know a little bit about everything. You never know what's going to walk through that door. And so what appealed to me was becoming really good in one area. And I chose acupuncture, and that kind of led on to rehab. So like more pain management stuff.
Yeah. And so as you started to become clear about, okay, I want to be really good in this one area, I want to work for myself, and I want to be able to kind of travel around spending more quality time with one pet at a time, or one family at a time. I'm sure you see a couple pets in one family. Um, what were some of like your biggest fears going into it?
Oh my gosh, not being successful. Like, how do you even get established?
Yeah.
And it took probably, gosh, let's see, I established my LLC in January. I didn't see a patient until May of that same year. I only had 3 appointments the entire first year that I was in practice, or had my own business. So, I was doing that as I was
Yeah.
still working full time. Um, so yeah, it was just a really slow process of like, is this going to happen? How do I make money? Like, I need to make sure that I can cover my bills. Um, Luckily, Mark is so supportive and was just like, when I was like, I feel like it's time to go full time. He's like, all right, we'll figure it out. If I have to carry the team, I'll do that. But luckily that hasn't been the case. I've always been able to cover what I need to cover and pay myself and contribute.
Yeah.
But just having that person behind me in my corner to like,
It makes a huge difference because the leap is really scary and really hard. So
yeah.
what were some of those initial steps once you went full time? Like, did you already have clients underneath you, or did you start marketing yourself like crazy and just saying yes to anything? Like, what was that transition like?
Gosh, kind of all of it. So I had been working at a rehab facility in the area for a little over a year. So I did have a handful of people that wanted to follow me. Now my attorney was like, you can't poach people. So they had to find me and reach out to me that way.
On their own.
Mhm. But I had a handful of people follow me, which was helpful. I had already started teaching acupuncture. So a lot of the other instructors have clinics in the Denver area. So they were starting to refer patients to me. And then because I was slow, I spent probably 2 or 3 weeks going to, I think it was something like 71 clinics in the surrounding area, and like dropped off pamphlets and brochures and a letter offering to come in and do like a PowerPoint, and just really starting to market myself. But I did say yes to anything that called initially. That has since changed as I've gotten busier. I can't be driving to Fort Collins or Denver or stuff on a daily basis. It's just way too far. But yeah, it was a process, and things evolve over time.
Yeah. Talk to us about that, because I think as a business owner myself, that's something that I feel like we don't talk, like people don't share about, is like there is this constant, you're in a constant state of evolution as a business owner. So, and the first few times you go through it, I think are the scariest, because you see your business as one way and you're running it and you're like holding on to that so tight because you don't know what you're doing. And then all of a sudden things have to change, but they have to change for your good because you can't do it anymore. But it's also really scary to feel like, am I good enough for this? Is this going to work? So what were some of like your early evolutions? Like what wasn't working for you? And like, how did you navigate that and start setting better limits or boundaries with clients and your schedule and things?
Oh my gosh, I feel like the first and foremost was getting a second phone.
Okay.
I mean, having direct access to a veterinarian is like everyone's dream. I like to think like, I mean, if something goes wrong with your dog, you want to talk to a vet, and you have to go through the front desk staff and then probably a technician and wait for that call back. And I'd say most people are very respectful. But very early on, I had a couple of people that, would call me at 2 a.m. or just really inappropriate, because I
Behavior.
had established like I do acupuncture. If
Yep.
your dog falls down the stairs, I am not the first person you should be calling. Like, that's what ERs are for. That's what your regular vet's for. So that was really hard to navigate, and being able to say no was really hard initially.
Yeah.
People don't want to necessarily pay for a house call. So can I meet you somewhere? No, like you can't, can I come to you? I don't want people at my house. So just having to figure that out. And then as things got busier, I eventually had to change my radius and the distance that I traveled. Well, then that escalated. So, I'm going to Lafayette, and then I'm going to Longmont, and then I'm going to Brighton, and then I'm going to Erie. And so I was like, okay, I got to figure that out. So now I finally, like on Tuesdays, I go to this area, Wednesdays, I go to this area. And that was a hard transition for my clients when I would say, hey, when do you want me to come next? Versus, hi, okay, the next time I can see you is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's wording and just putting your foot down and nope, your area on Thursday. So if that doesn't work, and having the confidence to know that if it doesn't work for someone, that someone else will call.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like for me, and you can tell me if you relate to this, I feel like I can so relate to what you're saying in different kind of categories, but people do like expect so much out of you. And when you start to be like, okay, this is what I can offer, it gets really, there's an awkward transition where you go from, okay, now this is something I realize I need to do in my head. And then the first time it comes out of your mouth, it's a little awkward, but then like the second or third time, it's like nothing. And then by the fourth time, you don't even second guess it. You're like, and you start to feel a lot more powerful. Is that what happened for you?
Definitely. Well, and then you're your own boss. So you're like, why are you letting your clients dictate?
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that I've struggled with is like, I have a little bit of a people pleaser in me. So people will be like, hey, I want you to do this for me and this for me and this for me. And there are some times when I just want to say yes to everything. But then I also know what I want to be an expert in and what I want to be, or what I'm most passionate about, or what I feel creative in. I'm sure it's kind of like that for you, is like, yeah, there's probably a lot of different kind of conversations you could have, or people want certain things out of you, but you have to be like, this is what I can offer. This is what I want to offer. Absolutely. That's it. That's hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I get people all the time. Like, my dog loves you so much. They hate going to the vet. Can you just do vaccines? I'm like, nope, I don't do anything. I do medications. I literally do my service, and anything else. But it also, a big part of that for me too is maintaining a positive relationship with the referring vets too, because I don't want to be taking business from anyone either. So it helps kind of like, there's a lot of benefit to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be hard to say no. And people I feel like they kind of do it like under the table, like, oh, could you just, oh, well, hey, since you're here, can you look at my other dog? No.
Yep. Yeah, it's so hard because, when you are a client, you're not thinking about things from the business owner's perspective. Yeah. And when you become a business owner, like your eyes get so opened up just into everything about managing your business, but then also you're also the person managing your life. Yeah. And so you have to, work-life balance is even more important because your business is your baby.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think the hard thing is just human nature. Your problem is the biggest thing on the docket. So, and that's the perspective that everyone is coming from. So when they want something, they want it now. And I'm guilty of it with like other things in my life.
Totally.
But yeah, I actually have like bounce back text messages and emails and my voicemail basically stating like, I'm on a wait list. At this point, like I'm at max capacity. It can take 2 to 4 months to get in, just to kind of prep people. And I still get those voicemails like, I mean, my animal is really struggling. Can you just squeeze us in? But I mean, you put your foot down in this.
Yeah.
I'm not the only option, or the only option out there. Like there are other options.
Right.
I mean, the one that you prefer because I come to your house, but I'm not the only one.
For sure. And that's the other thing that I think is, it's so different when you're a baby business owner and then you turn into being a more established business owner, is that difference between being available for everything and then being like, there are other people out there.
Yeah. Well, and also, if I start saying like yes to everything, those people expect that.
Yep.
And so when you say no,
Yeah.
like it's a disaster.
Yeah. No, that is something that that has really backfired in my life that I still struggle with, is that I feel like my business is constantly changing. So what I'm available for is constantly changing. I'm going through that right now where I'm getting ready to not do as much photography. Like after this year, I'm planning on slowing down. And I know I haven't told you this yet. And so it's really hard right now because I have a lot of people who are like, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And I'm like, my attention is on my second business right now. And so I'm not available for that. And it's so hard to say no to people that you've done so many sessions for and you love them. And they're like, you know, you develop relationships with people and you care about them just as much as they care about you and wanting to choose you. But it's like, I have to think like what you just said. I'm like, I'm not the only person out there. There's so many photographers out there who are really trying to grow their businesses right now and are really passionate about it. And everything I have on my schedule right now, I am passionate about, but that's as much bandwidth as I have right now. And that's something that you don't expect to face when you're in the early days of starting your business either. You can't even, I could never have even fathomed being like, this is how much bandwidth I have for this part of my life. And then outside of that, I have to do other things.
Well, and it's so hard too, because being your own bit like boss and your business owner, like your life is your business, especially at the beginning. And so it can be really hard to turn off. You don't have that 9 to 5. Like you could be working on the weekends. Well, I mean, you probably do a lot of weekends. I don't. But
that's a choice you made, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and like I figured out how to turn my phone over. So having a second phone. So at 4:30 on Fridays, because I chose to close at 4:30 on Fridays, like my phone goes over. And if people reach out,
you don't see it
on Monday. But I had to do that because like, you know, I remember a few years ago, which was the catalyst to getting my second phone. I had somebody that was having a crisis with their dog. And again, I'm not the person, but they wanted to, because I had this established relationship with them, they wanted to bounce everything off. But they were calling me in the middle of the night and like probably, I don't know, something like 12 times over the weekend. So there goes my whole rest and relaxation, my time to recharge, that's gone. Yeah. And that I think that Monday, it's like, all right, I'm going to get another phone so I can actually turn it over. It was like, that's great that you want to share that with me, but it's not urgent that you share that with me at 2 a.m. on a Saturday.
For sure. And it's like you said, it's like, they're not even thinking about the fact that like, you're not just like a sim in their world that you can just call the vet at 2 a.m. It's like, you're an actual person that's dealing with your own life and your own pets and your family and everything.
A huge kind of flip in my brain was when I realized that I work as a veterinarian. I don't identify as a veterinarian. There's so much more to me. Like that's my career.
Yeah.
And I'm passionate about it, but that's my 9 to 5. I mean, it's not technically 9 to 5, but you know,
tell us about that time when that switched. Like what was going on in your life that made that switch happen?
I don't know if it was one defining moment, but I mean, there's just little things like I'm proud to be a vet, but it backfires. So I remember once I was getting a massage, just supposed to be this calming, relaxing experience to help me recharge. And I told the masseuse that I was a vet, and she spent the entire hour asking me questions about her dog. We were on a trip. Actually, we talked about our trip to like Horseshoe Bend and like Powell and all of that. And we did this kayak tour up to the bottom of Antelope Canyon, and there were other people on this kayak tour. And again, it came up because I'm proud. I'm like, yeah, I'm a vet. I'm really proud to be a vet. Well, then, let me ask you about my dog. So 45 minutes of this hike up Antelope Canyon, this woman is asking me questions about her dog. And, my vet said this. And like, I'm on vacation. I'm getting a massage. I do not want to talk about my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a fine line.
About creating a fake job that you can tell strangers.
Uh-huh.
Well, that is, I know I do think that there's something about that where it's just like you said, how do you straddle being so proud of what you do and then not being kind of exploited for your knowledge and protecting your own self and your own experience? Because you don't want to be hiking up on your vacation and talking to other people about their animals.
Yeah, no. Or, it's hard when you have that Facebook acquaintance that you haven't talked to for years, and I'll see that message pop through, and I just know it's going to be a question about their pet. And so, like, I hate to not answer, but I usually wait a couple days because I'm like, you got to figure it out. Like, I'm going to tell you to call your vet. So you got to figure this out on your own. Like, I can't help you across the country. It's illegal.
Yeah.
Like, if I can't examine that pet, and I've been out of general practice for years, and I guarantee people aren't asking me about acupuncture.
Right. Exactly. And that's another kind of hard part. Like when you're talking about, like, when you realize that you are a person who has so many things about you and your job is X, like you're a vet, and yet people hear, yet you're a vet, but then they don't even know like what your specialty is and what your passion is. And they're not even talking to you and meeting you where you're at. They're just seeing this one thing about you and trying to relate to you. And that can be really painful for you.
Yes.
Like, and again, not hating on people who may never have thought about that. Like maybe this is an important conversation to bring to light because you're another person in that conversation that's not being seen or valued for what you're actually interested in.
Well, and it's helped me to think about if I have a question about taxes. So like my accountant was a friend in college. I have known him for 20 years. And so, I've actually reached out to him and said, if I have a tax question, do you want me to only message you on your business email? Because I don't want to be bothering him. Like, what are your hours? Like I then try to be respectful.
Yep.
And it wasn't something I would necessarily think about until
you went through this.
Mm-hmm.
How has running your own business really changed the way that you move through the world?
Well, I feel like one of the things that I strive to do is combine my passions. So I have to maintain a certain number of continuing education hours every year to maintain my veterinary license. So I try to find things that interest me, but also that I can do other stuff. So for instance, I did CE at Sea one year, and it was continuing education in pain management, acupuncture, laser therapy on a cruise ship where we went to Cuba. And so I was able to bring my husband along. I could use my business to pay for my side of the cruise. So like of our personal money, we only had to cover Mark's bit. And then another one I'm super excited about that's coming up. I found out about this week-long continuing education in Alaska on exercise physiology. It's kind of geared more towards athletes, specifically the Iditarod Huskies that like do the sled dog stuff. And so I'm potentially in January going to go up to Alaska for a week, learn about exercise physiology, and then we get to like run the sled dogs on the Iditarod. And I'm like, how cool is this? And if it works out, I'm going to see if, then Mark can come up and we can spend another week in Alaska and do that. That's but awesome. Just combining like how unique. I have to do this for my license, but I can make it really fun.
Yes.
Exciting out of it.
Yeah, that is one thing that I love about you is I do feel like you're always looking for like the bright side of any situation that you're going to be in. Like you're really good at living in the moment in that way. And I can't believe we've talked this long and this hasn't come up, but like your biggest passion of all is traveling, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
So it makes sense to me that like the more that you can travel for those kind of things, the more joy it brings you.
Absolutely. Like I love having those. It's not like a bragging thing, but it's just an excitement, like experiencing really unique things like the game, like Two Truths and a Lie. I love to have like really cool experiences that people are like, wait, how could all three of those, like two of those be truth? Like I've gone great white shark cage diving. I've skydived in New Zealand and I've done a well, that doesn't work because I've actually done all of those, but like camped overnight in the Sahara Desert, like
Yeah.
be able to do that. And people be like, wow, you've done all those things. I'm like, yeah. And almost all of those involved veterinary stuff, like that I've tacked on. Like,
I love that.
Life's too short. Like, why would you not want to experience everything you possibly can if you have the means to do it? Like, I never understood that in vet school. The other Americans that went to school in Scotland, so many of them went home for the holidays and like summer break, and they worked, and they're probably getting those equine internships that I didn't get. But I was like, man, I'm living in Europe. Like, I'm going to travel all summer, and I'm going to, go do a spay and neuter clinic in Cyprus and go to Morocco and work with horses. And just like, I just couldn't, I can never understand the people that went home for Christmas every year. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to go home for 2, and I'm going to spend 3 Christmases here and go to the Eastern European Christmas markets and try to go see the Northern Lights in Iceland. And
yeah. So speaking of all this travel, what was the last trip that you guys took before COVID hit, like before the pandemic?
I think it was the Cuba cruise. 2019, we did a week in St. Kitts, and then we did the cruise, and then we were planning for 2020, and then life hit. So we did do a 2-week road trip through Arizona and Utah that you and I had talked about, because you had just, like, tell me about Zion.
Yes.
But yeah, we're actually planning to go to Costa Rica for Mark's 40th birthday this year.
Tell us a little bit about that. Do you love planning travel? Like, how much time do you spend researching? Like, tell us about that part of your fun process.
Oh gosh, yes. I was thinking about this the other day, because Mark, someone asked him, like, if you could do any other job, what would you do? And before he even thought about it, he's like, I would be a mountain guide. And so now all of a sudden, he's buying all of this equipment to do, and he's looking into courses to learn about mountaineering and become certified in that. I'm like, hey, enjoy your passion. So I was driving the other day, and I was like, man, what would I do? I was like, I would want to be like a travel guide for people.
Yeah.
I freaking, and it has its detriment, because I will plan almost to the minute, like the entire trip. Like, we're going to eat at this restaurant, we're going to walk to this place, because I am really good at organizing. Poor Mark, like some of our first trips, he was like, I walked 30,000 steps today, and he like couldn't make it down the stairs in Hong Kong one day. Like, so now he has knee braces, because he has figured out what travel with Alissa means, and it's not rest and relaxation. It's experiencing everything we possibly can. But with that being said, like, I pride myself on experiencing everything we can, and only eating local food and seeing everything we can. But when things don't work out, that is rough for me.
Is it? Okay, you have to have an example.
Well, so in St. Kitts is kind of a sister island to Nevis. So it's St. Kitts and Nevis, and Alexander Hamilton was born on Nevis. And so I had planned, we had rented a car, and they have a ferry. I mean, it's like 2 miles to Nevis. You can see it. It's a teeny little island. It's 20 miles around it. So I had planned this whole day where we take the ferry, our rental car over there, and then we drive around, and I just planned this whole day. Well, in St. Kitts, they don't always follow through with their
arrangements.
So we get to the ferry for the 7:30, because I'd looked up all the times and I was ready to go, how much cash it costs. Like, well, 7:30, there's no ferry. Okay, well, we'll catch the 8:30. 8:30, there's no ferry. 10 o'clock, a random time, I'm like, oh, well, then the guy's like, we don't have space for you. Wait till this one. So then this whole day is just disappearing, and I'm just having this breakdown, like, we're not going to make it. We're going to eat dinner at this way. Well, then the restaurants aren't open. So, and like, then we have to figure out, okay, well, we can do a guided trip on Nevis. We can't take our car over there, apparently. So that changed everything. We didn't get to see all this stuff. And then we had to cancel snorkeling, because I wanted to do like the Nevis stuff instead of snorkeling. Just, it's hard for me when things don't work out, because I work so hard planning for months and months, and I have these, Word documents that I've printed out, like the exact miles and
I love that about you so much. How does Mark handle you when you start to break down, when things don't go your way?
oh gosh. I think the easiest thing for him to do is just let me kind of freak out.
He just lets you be.
Like, all right, well, we'll figure it out. Like, but blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, what's plan B? Because he knows I probably have a plan A, B, C, D, and F. Like,
Right.
but yeah, I think he's, I don't know if there's a great way to reason with me. You kind of just have to let me spiral.
Let you figure out the next plan when
Uh-huh.
you're able to think of it.
Well, and he's so just like, whatever, like, I'm going to let you plan it all. Like, I'm just excited to be here. So he's like, I don't have any clue. You tell me what we're doing.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that like I can tell from talking to you before and just like knowing how you feel about travel, that planning is as big a part of the joy of it as even being able to experience it.
Absolutely. I get so excited and I do a lot of research about things. So we'll like drive by this teeny tiny thing on the side of the road. And I'm like, oh my gosh, let me tell you this cool fact that I learned about. Actually, what's really cool, we went on our road trip. We were going to Monument Valley and I had discovered that there is this Burger King in Arizona that is owned by one of the Navajo Windtalkers from World War II. And so in this Burger King, there is this museum that the Navajo Windtalker and his descendants, so I think it's his grandson that owns it now, but they have his purple heart that has like all these Navajo turquoise beading around it and all of the pictures. And it just talks about, the Navajo Windtalkers and how important they were in World War II. And so like, I just find these like little weird, obscure, cool, amazing things that, you would just be like, oh, I'm going to Monument Valley and I can stand where John Wayne stood and call it good. But I'm like, no, but what about all these other cool things? And if you didn't do research, like I would never know that.
Drive right past it.
Oh, we're not going to eat at Burger King. Like, why would we eat at Burger King? That's everywhere.
Right. Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, and you've been able to experience so many things because you look at life that way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like it kind of, having trips to look forward to, kind of helps you through the more mundane parts of like the 9 to 5 life?
Absolutely. Yeah, it gives me excitement. And like when we went to Cuba, I found some fiction books to read so that when we're seeing areas in Cuba, I'm like, oh, this was in my book. And just I can really immerse myself into learning about a new culture. And yeah.
I love that. What is what are some of the ways that you manage taking that time off? Because like obviously you are a business owner, but speaking of the juggle, right? Like, did you ever feel like there was a time where you felt like you couldn't take time away, or did you always know, I'm going to carve out time so that I can travel?
Gosh, no, I kind of let my work take over. But again, as things evolve, it's like, you know what? I don't have to go see a patient at 7 o'clock in the morning because they want me to be there. So I'm coming off of 10 days straight of working right now because I taught acupuncture last weekend. And as difficult as that was, I also scheduled none of my patients to start before 11. So even though I'm still working every day, I didn't have to wake up to an alarm. So I could just let my body wake up, get the sleep I needed. Granted, my animals are kind of an alarm. They need their breakfast at 7:30.
Yes.
But just not waking up to an alarm was super helpful. I also have just kind of made an agreement with myself that I work until 6 Monday through Thursday. So I don't typically schedule appointments past 5:30, which gives me time to get home and finalize my records so that at 6 o'clock when I turn my phone over, I'm done. My records are finished. I've, documented phone calls, texts, whatever I've done business wise, so that at 6 o'clock, like I'm done working. Because it's so easy. Like I could be working till 10 p.m., even
Yeah.
like at 6, and I've just had to make that a priority. Like I turn off at 6 and Dr. Alissa is no more. Now I'm Alissa.
Yeah. Do you Oh gosh, I'm like sitting here like in awe of you right now because I feel like there's so many times in my life where I know that if I get on a schedule that it would benefit me, but actually doing it is really hard. Do you ever struggle with like making that happen, or do you just be like commit to it?
I I think it's a personality trait. So we just took Enneagram tests and I found out I'm the perfectionist. I'm a 1. So having a schedule and being organized, like I thrive on that. Um, and just planning like, okay, 3 days a week, I'm going to do strength training. 3 days a week, I'm going to do cardio workouts. Sunday is my rest day and I'm going to do, and it's just like, this is how it goes. And here's the things I want to accomplish in the day. And so how do I make that happen?
At least from my experience as a 1 and from what we've been talking about knowing you're a 1, there's a lot of pressure on yourself to be like, I have to get as much information as possible so that I can make a good decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And maybe that's something that like as business owners that we've incorporated a lot into running a business too, is like, I have to perfect this. Like, it's not enough just to go through the motions. It's how do I optimize this? How do I make the most of my time? How do I live the best life I can live while I'm also doing this work that I love, but is also a job?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it is. It's, perfecting the art of the work-life balance. Ultimately, I think like,
Yep, exactly. Are there any other tools or strategies that you have just built in that just keep you sane, that really do help you with that work-life balance?
fitness,
Yeah,
like, which I think also kind of spills over into my job too, because, you know, being a dog therapist, I mean, that fitness aspect is just, it makes you well-rounded and it really is healthy. And it's been shown in studies to be mentally beneficial. Um, and I think just finding what I'm passionate about in fitness, because fitness is a huge thing. I've dabbled in bodybuilding and CrossFit and yoga, and, now I'm really into the Peloton, and just finding what's fun and what is going to take, I can get on the Peloton bike and put on like Broadway or Disney, and I'm getting a workout in, but I'm singing and I'm having a great time and I'm able to just chill out and get a workout in at the same time,
yeah,
which just benefits all around, like the endorphins post workout, the health benefits of being active. Um, yeah.
absolutely. One thing that I'm really taking away from what you just said is, and it bleeds to so much of what I know about you and the rest of our conversation, which is like, if you're going to do anything, you have to have a payoff for yourself in terms of like what's rewarding for you, and that could be something that's fun or something that's an experience or a fun experience, or at least rewarding in some kind of way. Otherwise, why do it?
Yeah.
Right?
It's too short. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, I just feel like there's so many ways to make what you have to do into something that's enjoyable at the same time. Like,
Absolutely. Because life is really hard, but I think there are so many ways to make it so that you're doing it the best that you can. And not to say that you're not going to have a bad day or you're
oh,
not going to have a bad experience but those are things that you learn from that help you do it better the next time.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and like in the moment, it's like the worst thing in the world. And now we can look back on like, oh my gosh, remember when you couldn't walk down the stairs in Hong Kong because that made you walk 20,000, 30,000 steps in a day? Like,
For
or
sure.
like, why wouldn't you want to experience everything? I want to see everything and do everything. And I don't know. And as we hopefully get out of the pandemic and all of the other crazy things that are happening in this world, like I know I'm personally struggling with like the stress of not knowing the future.
Yes.
I don't know, just taking it day by day and enjoying the experiences that you have. Mhm.
I think that's so important because, you know, we live in this culture right now where everything is the highlight reel, and we're not talking. I mean, there's a lot of like the vulnerability culture too, where everyone's like also talking about what's so hard. But I don't know if we're having enough of like the real authentic in between conversations. Like, we're not with each other when we're up in the middle of the night, stressed out in bed, not able to sleep,
Yeah.
and these are really real things. It's like, it is it is scary. It's scary to not know what's next or what you can count on or how you're going to manage it all. And thus the importance of like, how can I be more in the moment right now?
Yeah. Well, like if you lose it all, like I just have this fear of like not being able to continue living the life that we're currently living, and like what would we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Brene Brown are you a Brene Brown fan?
I have not ever listened or read anything of hers actually.
My go-to Brene Brown book, and you can get it as an Audible book. It's pretty short. I think it's like 4.5 hours. It's The Gifts of Imperfection.
Okay.
And actually, as finding out that you're a one, like the perfectionist, this is like such a good one. Check it out. But she talks about how when you're feeling that squeeze of like fearful that you're about to lose something, that like what the other side of that coin is that you're really just so grateful for what you have, and that makes it so scary to lose it. But like what you can do is just really try to be like, I'm so grateful for this. Like, I'm so grateful for my house. I'm so grateful for my job. I'm so grateful for my husband, like all of those things. And that it kind of helps kind of recalibrate, because it's a good thing to be in a place in your life where you have so much that you're grateful for that you're so scared to lose it.
Yeah, I know. I do feel really lucky, but at the same time, like you said, the flip side of that coin is like, oh my gosh. But that's also why I want to do all the things, so that if something happens and I can't travel, like, wow, look at all the places that I've been and all the experiences that I have had.
Yeah. And you were able to do that during the pandemic. While, a lot of people are like, I can't start my life right now. I mean, not to say like, at least you could look back and be like, thank God we went to Cuba. Thank God we went to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But you were able to say that. And like, was that a comfort?
Yes, it was, but it also made me really sad because there's so many other places that I want to go and things I
Yeah.
want to see. And I'm like, are we ever going to get out of this? Like, and it brought on a lot of anxiety for me. I'm still, in
Yeah.
mask all the time. And like, I don't care if people give me dirty looks, like, or weird looks because I'm walking around in my mask. Like, it's almost become like a security blanket for me, I think, a little bit.
Yes. I don't
But
think you're alone with that. I've had conversations with other friends who feel the same way, where it's for some reason, it's that piece of comfort that makes you feel like you have control over how you're managing through this unpredictable, ever changing, and not in a good way world.
yeah. Well, and I want to be able to look back and know that I did everything in my power to try to better the world and keep everyone, including myself, safe.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of it does stem from the fear of my business having to be shut down. Because if I get sick, even if it's a cold, like I just have that responsibility to my clients going into their homes. That if I have a cold, even I need to make sure it's not COVID.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I do not want to get sick because I don't want to shut down. I don't want to get someone else sick and know
Yeah.
that was my fault because I made an irresponsible decision.
Sure. And I mean, the financial impact that it would have on you personally would be devastating for you in the way that other people, well, I think some people have experienced, but not everyone experiences being not a business owner.
Right. Yeah, it does. It all stems from fear and like it's been a journey. Like the last 2 years have been more of a mental journey than a physical one. I've experienced a lot, grown a lot that way.
Do you feel like this year, not to say anything about like the pandemic being over or anything like that, but do you feel like with Costa Rica coming up at a certain point that that's kind of like something you're kind of navigating through yourself through this year, is like a way to be like, okay, how do I get myself to a place where I feel comfortable moving through the world? Is it like a pivot out of the past 2 years?
It's still a really slow process. Like I'm still not comfortable eating in a restaurant. But we went to the theater, and granted, everyone had to be vaccinated. They checked cards, everyone was masked. So I was really worried about being in a crowd.
Yeah.
And it was okay. And so again, I think it's just going to be baby steps for me.
Yep.
And and I have planned Costa Rica. We are on a vaccine required trip, so everyone has to be vaccinated. Most of everything we're doing is outdoors. So I've still planned it with the anticipation of COVID still being a factor.
That's so smart, because you're like bracing yourself for anything.
Yeah. Oh, I was able to get insurance that we can cancel up to 2 days before we leave. So it's like, okay, we can do this.
You're planning it in such a way that it makes it work for you with the fears that you fear right now, the concerns about the world, the anxiety that you're kind of working through right now, and also the state of the world, the unknown, unpredictable pandemic that we're in right now.
Right. Won't even go into Russia, Ukraine, but I mean, who knows?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
I know it's very heavy right now, but that's why I think that this conversation is so important, and why I'm so excited to share it with everybody who's listening right now, is because we are figuring out how to manage, whether we're trying to figure out our work-life balance in this new world, or we're trying to figure out our mental balance between the heaviness around us and trying to be light for our own sake, and try to get back to those pieces where we can feel a little bit happier, a little bit more joyful, a little bit more ease in a world that hasn't felt that way in a long time.
Yeah. It's hard. It's a juggling act.
It is. And when we're all figuring out, and I appreciate everything that you've shared, just because I think it's so, personally, I think it's so important that we think outside of the box, and we think about the things like, what is not working in my life, and how can I adjust things so that it does work for me? And I feel like you've given us so many examples of ways you've done that for yourself, whether it's with your work or with traveling or with managing, concerns. And I know that that's an inspiration.
Oh, I hope if I can help anybody, like why not?
Why not? Right. And we're all learning from each other.
Yeah.
Well, as we kind of wrap up today's episode, I always like to end each episode with a card drawing. So I'm going to shuffle this little deck. This is called the Affirmators Love and Relationships deck. And it always has just like something to think about. And I always like to use this as a way to close each episode. So I will shuffle the deck, I'll pull a card, and then we can kind of just see if we think it fit with what we've discussed today.
Perfect.
Well, this is the card. I'm going to show it to you so you know that this is what I'm going to read to you. I'll read it to you. We got the card that says open-heartedness. I know that life and the people living in it can be an absolute bummer sometimes, but I promise not to let unhappy chapters make me jaded. If I let negative experiences turn me sour, then the jerks win. So I'll move on with an open and hopeful heart, even if it's only because I hate losing to jerks.
I feel like that's applicable. Like
Totally.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, especially just with, just talking about some of the tougher parts of life and tougher parts of owning and running a business. It's like you said, it's like, if it's going to be a bummer or if it's going to be bad, it's not worth doing, but you can't get to the good parts without an open heart.
Yes.
Well, Alissa, thank you so much for being on today. Is there any way that people can follow your work if they're curious? Like, do you share your life online at all, in a way that people can follow and track you?
I am not actually really good about social media, but I
Yeah.
do a patient of the week every week. And I'm sure maybe you've seen on Facebook, I dress my dogs and cats up in holiday themed outfits for marketing. So if anyone likes cute puppy and kitty and horse photos, I do have a Facebook page and I do a funny Friday comic. But yeah, the travel stuff, I probably should get more into sharing. But
it's a double-edged sword, because sometimes that can take you more out of the moment. So I'm always going to be, of course, I want people to be able to follow the people that they're hearing from, but at the same time, I'm also an advocate for my friends of saying, don't feel like you have to post your whole life on social media. But yeah. We can link to your Facebook business page so that they can follow along with Pets of the Week, because they are one of my favorite parts of being on Facebook, is seeing your Pets of the Week.
Right. I just did the photos for like St. Patrick's Day that's coming up, and I was actually able to get one of the cats in addition to the dogs in their little leprechaun hats. So,
oh my gosh. Okay. So and you'll post that on your business page.
yes.
Okay. So we'll link to that. So if you want to follow along Alissa's journey and see all her awesome patients that she works with, you can follow her there. But thank you so much, Alissa.
Yes, thank you for having me, Felicia. It was so much fun.